This movie is about a bunch of kids that get together, and they decide to, like, they're kind of bored. They want to hang out. They're going to have a seance, so they decide to like mess around with the supernatural. They take it very lightly at first. They get a medium to kind of help them. The medium disappears. One of them makes a mistake and gets themselves in trouble with a real spirit that goes after them. And then after the second half of the movie, everything just goes crazy. That's when they pull out all the real effects. Um, so it sort of starts out with like that teenagers in the woods just going to party and having a good time and disregarding the supernatural, and then they realize how serious it is.
And the interesting thing about this is, so Host was born out of an actual Zoom call that
Mm-hmm.
he did with his friends, where he played this joke on them and recorded it, and then he put that video on YouTube, and it goes
Mm-hmm.
viral, as he's explaining, and then it blows up. Leverages that into a deal with Shudder, where he turns it into not even a feature, which is pretty cool. It's 57 minutes. That's what I like about these kind of new platforms. Is like, it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. Who gives a shit if it's 90 minutes or 30 minutes? It's 57 minutes. It is what it is. And now, because of the success of it on Shudder, he's now signed a 3-picture deal with Blumhouse, which I think is awesome. And that is like, if you're thinking about a career path as an indie horror filmmaker, and how like how you're going to make it to where you get a 3-picture deal with Blumhouse, or how you're going to get that feature that made, where you're not begging, borrowing, and stealing the money to get it made. This is kind of the path. It's like really cool. So today's episode, we're going to talk about the career path and leveraging those moments, like what he did, which I think the pivotal moment was the that Zoom call that he did, where it went viral.
Yeah, and what's impressive about Rob Savage is he made his first movie when he was either 17 or 18, which went on to a bunch of festival acclaim.
He knows indie filmmaking. This is a micro budget filmmaker. His first film, which he won an award on, is a feature that he made for $3,000.
Yeah.
Right. So he understands all that. I mean, that all goes to show, like, he clearly has chops as a micro indie filmmaker. And I think that's one of the things where, like, I would encourage any filmmaker out there. It's like, hey, if you got a feature film, like, can you make it a short? Can you do a 5-minute
Mm-hmm.
piece on it, and then put it out there on YouTube? Get something out there, so you can get some eyeballs on it. I mean, you don't have to go the Saw road, where those guys made it for the sake of showing proof of concept to studios. You can do it just to put it out there, and then leverage that if you get enough views. If you're cranking out short films, or even concepts or little things, and being able to put it out there and put it out in the world, first off, you're going to get people watching you. You're going to learn some shit, and get some attention. And I think it's just producing something, whether it's concept, short, anything, and putting it out there is the way to go. And I mean, and clearly constantly creating like he did. And you look at that path he did. I think if you look on IMDb for Rob Savage, it was like $3,000 feature film to start, and then a pile of short films.
Mm-hmm.
He did the festival circuits, networked with a bunch of people, kind of knew the direction he wanted to go, did this one viral hit, and it went viral. But then he had the background to be able to leverage that into this deal with Shudder, because they're, you won a film festival, you won this, okay, great, you've got that, here it is. And now you're going to be seeing him for a while, because he's got this deal. And the more stuff you put out there, the better you're going to get. Don't be afraid to put shit out there, but do it strategically. Do it in a way that you can see how many views you're getting. You maybe you wrap it around some sort of crowdfunding, where you get users and get people involved, and you can get a fan base. He played around for like 7-8 years, short films, micro budget, had a viral hit, and then leverage that viral hit, and that's what's got him where he is. And I think it's that's the big takeaway, is that you got to keep your feet moving, and then eventually be prepared for when something does happen. When you do get a hit, you're able to convert it into something.
Yeah, absolutely. So what did you think? Like, what was it with the movie Host that worked for you the best? What do you think fired on all cylinders for that movie?
For me, the best, what I thought was super great about it, is that it took a format that we're all used to right now, which is Zoom, and it basically created a story within a format that we're used to, and then so pretty quickly, right off the bat, you got it. You understood where it was at, and like, it's one of those things. As soon as you see it for the first time, you're like, "Ah, of course, it's a great way to do this." And other films have done things that similar, where they're talking. They've used social media. I think Catfish was one where it was all done through social media, and there's been some other examples of that as well. But for me, it was like it just instantly clicked, and I was drawn into it because I was like, no, I get what you're doing. I get where you're at. I understand the format. I've been on 1,000 of these calls, and now you're storytelling within that format, and it really worked. I mean, there were certain things that like for me, like there's a couple points I was like, why are they turning your laptop around and walking forward? Like it doesn't make any sense to me. But you pretty quickly, you have to give a little suspension of disbelief on certain stuff. But to use the format to tell the story well, but then all of a sudden, I mean, I'll be honest with you, the effects and the stunts and the different stuff they did at the end, like were really good. Like they really, like they didn't take me out at all. Like and the fact that they pulled that off working remotely and getting it all done, I thought that really ticked a box for me. I was like, holy shit. Like, and it starts slow too. Like the first sort of jump scare and the second one, you're like, oh, is this what it's going to be? Then all of a sudden it unleashes at the end. And you're like, again, like we said at the beginning, when you talked about all those practical effects, and these were practical effects, it makes you stop and go, how'd they do that? I like that a lot more than if they put a bunch of CG in it and made it kind of a different look. So
Yeah.
that's it. The format and the fact that they pulled off those practical effects and made them look good.
The first time that I watched it, I was kind of like the first half didn't work as well for me because I didn't think they're going to show me anything, and then the second half like really locked me in. And then I watched it again, and the pacing actually worked a lot better for me. What I think was really cool about this movie is they had like we're talking about streaming. They utilized the streaming element that's best for it, which is like you can have series on streaming. One episode can be 57 minutes, one episode can be 45 minutes. It's not like a character piece or anything else like that. It's a roller coaster that you're going on for 57 minutes. It starts up like this for the first half, and then it goes down all the way through, and then you're going through a bunch of loops until it ends. But that's what I kind of viewed this movie as, is like a Halloween haunt or a roller coaster ride. It doesn't need that extra time frame. It doesn't need those extra subplots like movies do. It just is to start it and then hit you over the head and keep hitting you over the head until it's over.
Yeah. Now the interesting thing about it too, and you could probably add to this is how they got those practical effects done and doing it remotely. Like when I read about it, I mean, there's some cool effects, like people flying up in the air and getting thrown around. There's a fall off and there's demons and shit, and people kind of like shit flying around. And he did it remotely. He had sent stuff to them because I don't know if they legitimately did it on Zoom. I doubt it, but they would have done it just on remote, like low budget cams. But it was pretty cool that he sent stuff to each of them and walked them through it, and he wasn't even there, and they all pulled it off. I mean, I think you know a bit more about that one, but I mean, to me that was kind of cool. Like he sent these packages to everyone. It's like, okay, here's what we're going to do in these things, and they had to set it up. I think one stunt coordinator shows up, kind of helps walk through a bunch of stuff, but that was really cool. To pull that off is pretty impressive.
Yeah. And another thing too was that I was thinking, like, why does this movie kind of work on a primal level? Because a lot of ghost movies that you watch, you don't really know exactly what the ghost is capable of doing. A lot of times it's just to like kind of show up at random moments, scare somebody, or maybe scare somebody into getting them to commit suicide, or getting them to attack somebody else, or getting them to go crazy. In this one, the ghost appears. They don't really have any background on the ghost or anything like that, which makes it better, I think. The ghost just appears and he can do physical damage to every single person in the movie. Basically, the physical barrier of this world, once they invite him in, does not stop his powers. He has essentially limitless power to destroy everyone that he goes after. And most ghost stories are very vague about what the actual powers of the ghost are. And that's why a lot of ghost stories don't work for me, because I'm confused as to what the limitations are and what they can do in their world. But this one, they're basically like a Jason or a Freddy when they come in after people. And that's what I thought really worked on a primal level about it, because you knew the ghost could actually do harm to everybody in the movie.
Yeah, now that I think about it, it's actually interesting because they could do like a Blair Witch thing where the Blair Witch 1 was filmed Everyone knows the Blair Witch, how it
Yeah.
was filmed, where they sent them, the actors didn't know what they were doing.
Hmm.
It was all shot on their own cameras and blah, blah. And Blair Witch 2 just didn't even take that same format, just shot its own film,
Right.
taking the
Yeah.
same, taking the same
Yeah.
concept. This could actually do the same thing. It's like, okay, well, we've created a character. They've done it through Zoom. It didn't have to be through Zoom. It actually was established at the beginning that the person leading the seance typically doesn't do it through something like Zoom. So now we've actually created a world, and we could actually take that world and now go shoot it, in a traditional fashion.
Yeah.
But there's actually another thing that you could think as a filmmaker. It's like, hey, if you have a big concept for something, is there a cheaper way to do it just to
Right.
get it out there, and to be able
Right.
to leverage the cheap way of doing it and say, okay, well, now that we've done that, we can do this. Like, can we
And
show a snippet
that's
of
true.
this, right? Like,
That's
it's a
true.
cool way to think about it.
What it also kind of reminded me of too is a lot of Lovecraft movies, because he has a public license. A
Hmm.
lot of Lovecraft movies, they encompass that they're made low budget. A lot of them historically have been made low budget, but they also encompass like that bigger picture. So there's
Hmm.
some element out there that comes after us, and that element that comes after us, it is something that is completely beyond our understanding, and we feel very minuscule compared to the power that it has. And that's sort of what it reminded me of this, but in the ghost world for it.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
there's sort of a cosmic horror element that I think works for this as well too.
yeah. So it works for the story, but it also works as a filmmaker, right?
Mhm.
Because you can sit there and say, well, we have a low budget, we have
Low
this
budget, but
form,
a much bigger idea or
but
concept.
a
Right?
much bigger
Exactly. Yeah.
idea. So
Mhm.
let's just explore a sliver of the idea here, at this format. And then when you're actually going out there to pitch it, if it hits, you're saying, well, hey, look, there's a bigger picture here. It's kind of like saying, it's like, oh no, this is my Iron Man. By the way, there's an entire extended, Marvel universe.
Mhm.
This is how it plays out, but I've just only told this one story. Do you want to help me tell the rest of the story? Then because if it hits, it's now all of a sudden you have leverage to get other films made. But I think
Yeah.
that's actually, like, it's a kind of cool way to look at it and say, hey, we've just created a world about this seance and bringing someone in there, because if you fuck around like she found in the movie, the spirit can come in there, and oh my god, you don't want that. Now we discovered it through a Zoom chat, but hey,
Mhm.
in part two, it might very well be we discover it in the woods on a real seance, and now let's explore this character and this whole world a little bit more. you
Right.
you've
Yeah.
you've created a world, and now you have something to take to studios or people and say, hey, I've already done this, let's explore it further. In fact, I would be shocked if his first film with Blumhouse isn't somehow related to this. I mean, the main takeaway here really is that go out there and make shit, and get your stories out there. And I think that's a good place to end, because hey, you might have this big whole idea, but is there a way to take one little part of it and get it out there somehow in a cheap and efficient way? And then if it gets any traction, you now have the rest of the world that you can take out there.